The message arrived at midnight on a quiet Tuesday. It traveled across 3,000 light-years of empty space, passed through 17 relay stations, and finally landed on the desk of Dr. Kim Yuna in the historical archives of New Seoul. She almost deleted it. The sender was unknown, and the file size was tiny. Most messages like this were garbage, spam from traders or automated warnings about ship traffic. But something made her stop. The origin coordinates showed a region of space that humans rarely visited, a region that most species had forgotten existed. Kim Yuna opened the message. It contained only 12 words in broken universal standard. "We do not ask for help. We only wish to say goodbye." Her hands began to shake. She checked the origin coordinates again. Then she checked them a third time. The message came from Veloci Prime. For a long moment she sat in silence. The archives were empty at this hour. The only sound was the soft hum of the climate systems keeping the ancient documents at the perfect temperature. Around her, the walls held the memories of humanity. Every treaty, every war, every kindness given and received across 800 years of space travel. Kim Yuna knew the story of the Veloci better than anyone alive. It was her life's work. It was the story that defined what humanity meant. 300 years ago, humanity had nearly died. The collapse plague came from nowhere. Some said it was a weapon. Others said it was a natural virus that jumped from an alien world to human bodies. It did not matter where it came from. What mattered was what it did. In 18 months, 2 billion humans died. Colonies fell silent. Ships became floating tombs. Earth itself lost a quarter of its population before anyone understood what was happening. The Galactic Council watched. They offered sympathy. They offered thoughts and prayers. They offered nothing useful. Humanity was young. Humanity was small. Humanity was not important enough to save. Then the Veloci came. They were a small species from the outer rim, gentle beings with silver skin and large dark eyes. They communicated through a mixture of sound and telepathy. They had no military. They had no great wealth. They were known for nothing except kindness. When the Veloci heard about the human plague, they did something that shocked the galaxy. They loaded every medical ship they owned with supplies. They emptied their food stores. They gathered their best doctors and scientists, and they flew to human space without asking permission. The journey took them 4 months. Along the way, Veloci children began to starve because there was not enough food left at home. The council ordered them to turn back. They refused. The council threatened to remove their voting rights. They kept flying. When the Veloci fleet arrived at Earth, humans did not know what to think. These aliens had no reason to help. They had nothing to gain. They came anyway. The Veloci doctors worked for 2 years without rest. They shared medical knowledge that their species had developed over 10,000 years. They gave humans technology that could have been sold for enormous profit. They asked for nothing in return. When humans tried to pay them, the Veloci ambassador simply said, "We saw suffering. We had the ability to help. What else could we do?" The plague ended. Humanity survived. The Galactic Council punished the Veloci harshly. They said the Veloci had violated quarantine protocols. They said the Veloci had shared restricted technology. They stripped the Veloci of their council seat. They took away their protected trade routes. They removed the military shield that kept small species safe from larger predators. The Veloci accepted the punishment without complaint. Their ambassador said only, "We would do it again." In the centuries that followed, the Veloci faded from galactic importance. Without protection, they could not expand. Without trade routes, they could not grow wealthy. They became a forgotten species on a forgotten world, remembered only in human history books. But humans remembered. Every child on Earth learned the story of the Veloci. It was taught in schools. It was told at family dinners. It was written into the Constitution of the United Earth Coalition. The Veloci had saved humanity when no one else would. This was a debt that could never be fully repaid, but it was a debt that would never be forgotten. Kim Yuna read the message again. We do not ask for help. We only wish to say goodbye. She ran a search on recent news from the Outer Rim. What she found made her blood turn cold. The Krath Dominion had invaded Veloci space. The Krath were everything the Veloci were not. They were brutal. They were expansionist. They had conquered 17 species in the last century. Their fleets numbered in the thousands. Their soldiers were bred for war. When the Krath wanted something, they took it. The Veloci had nothing the Krath wanted. No valuable resources. No strategic position. No military secrets. The Krath were attacking simply because the Veloci were weak, and the Krath enjoyed crushing weak things. Kim Yuna looked at the message one more time. The Veloci were not asking for help. They knew no help would come. The galaxy had abandoned them long ago. They only wanted someone to know they had existed. They only wanted someone to remember them. She picked up her communicator and called a number she had never used before. A direct line to Admiral Park T, commander of Earth's Third Fleet. The Admiral answered on the second ring. His voice was tired. "Dr. Kim, it is late. What could be so urgent?" "Admiral," she said, "do you know the story of the Veloci?" There was a long pause. When Park T spoke again, his voice had changed. "My grandmother told me that story every night when I was a child. Every human knows that story. Why do you ask?" "Because they just sent us a goodbye message. The Krath are destroying their world. They expect to die. They wanted us to know." The silence stretched for nearly a minute. Kim Yuna could hear the Admiral breathing. She could almost hear him thinking. "Send me everything," Park T finally said. "Every coordinate, every piece of intelligence you can find. I will contact Earth Command within the hour." "Admiral," Kim Yuna said carefully, "the Krath have over 2,000 ships. We have 340 in our entire navy. The Council will not support intervention. The math does not work." Park T's response came without hesitation. "The Veloci did not check the math when they came to save us. They saw suffering. They had the ability to help. They came anyway." He paused. "I will recommend full mobilization to Earth Command. Every ship, every soldier, everything we have." "They will say it is suicide." "Perhaps," the Admiral agreed. "But some debts must be paid, Dr. Kim, even if the cost is everything." He ended the call. Kim Yuna sat alone in the archives, surrounded by the memory of 800 years, and she knew with absolute certainty that the galaxy was about to learn what humanity truly was. The emergency session of the United Earth Coalition began at dawn. President Yoon Hana stood at the center of the Great Chamber, surrounded by representatives from every human world. The room was silent. Everyone had already heard the news. 300 years ago, President Yoon began, humanity was dying. The plague had killed billions. Our colonies were falling. Earth itself was burning. We called out for help and the galaxy turned away. Every species, every council member. They watched us die and did nothing. She paused and looked around the room. Every face was focused on her. Then the Veloci came. They were small. They were poor. They had nothing to gain from helping us, but they came anyway. They emptied their food stores until their own children went hungry. They gave us medicine and technology and hope. They saved us. And when the council punished them for this kindness, they accepted it without complaint. Their ambassador said only 4 words: "We would do it again." President Yoon activated the display behind her. A star map appeared, showing Veloci space surrounded by the red markers of the Krath invasion fleet. The Krath Dominion has attacked Veloci Prime. They have 2,000 warships. The Veloci have no military. The Council has refused to intervene. In 3 days, perhaps 4, the Veloci will be destroyed. Their species will end. Their kindness will be forgotten by everyone except us. She turned off the display. "I have received a recommendation from Admiral Park T and Earth Command. They recommend full mobilization. Every ship, every soldier, every resource we have." A murmur passed through the chamber. Representative Song from the Mars Coalition stood up. "Madam President, I must ask the obvious question. We have 340 ships. The Krath have 2,000. How can we hope to win?" "We cannot," President Yoon said simply. "The math does not work. Every tactical analysis says we will lose." "Then why go?" President Yoon looked at Representative Song for a long moment. Then she looked at the entire chamber. "Because the Veloci did not check the math when they came for us. They knew the council would punish them. They knew they would lose everything. They came anyway. They came because they saw suffering and had the ability to help. They came because it was right." She stepped closer to the representatives. "We call ourselves human. We say we are different from the other species. We say we remember kindness. We say we honor our debts. Now we must prove it. If we turn away while the Veloci die, then we are no different from the species who turned away from us. If we let them burn alone, then everything we believe about ourselves is a lie." The chamber was completely silent. "I am not ordering this intervention," President Yoon continued. "I am asking for a vote. Every world, every representative. If we do this, we do it together, and we do it knowing the cost." Representative Song sat down slowly. He looked around at his colleagues. Then he raised his hand. "Mars votes yes." One by one, hands went up around the chamber. Earth voted yes. Luna voted yes. The colonies of Alpha Centauri voted yes. The mining stations of the belt voted yes. The research outposts of the outer systems voted yes. Not a single representative voted no. President Yoon felt tears forming in her eyes, but she did not let them fall. The motion passes unanimously. Full mobilization begins immediately. May history remember what we did here today. Within hours, the news spread across human space. Billions of people watched the recordings of the vote. They saw their representatives stand together. They heard the president speak about debt and honor and kindness. The response was overwhelming. Recruitment centers were flooded with volunteers. Old soldiers came out of retirement. Young people who had never considered military service lined up by the thousands. Factory workers volunteered for extra shifts to build weapons and supplies. Scientists offered their research. Doctors packed their bags. On Earth, a grandmother told her grandson the story of the Veloci while packing his uniform. "They saved us," she said. "Now you will save them. This is what it means to be human." On Mars, a father said goodbye to his daughter at the spaceport. "I am proud of you," he said. "Your great-great-grandmother would be proud of you. She survived the plague because of the Veloci. Now you carry that debt forward." On a small mining station in the belt, an old miner donated his entire life savings to the war fund. When asked why, he simply said, "I read the history books. I know what they did for us. Money means nothing if honor means nothing." The Galactic Council sent an urgent message to Earth. They demanded an explanation. They warned of consequences. They threatened sanctions and trade restrictions. Earth's response was brief: "We remember." The Council did not understand. They sent more messages asking for clarification. What did humans mean? What were they remembering? Why were they throwing away their entire military for a worthless species on a worthless world? Humans did not bother to explain. There was no point. Species who had forgotten how to be grateful could not understand gratitude. Species who had never honored a debt could not understand honor. Captain Beek Jin received her orders on the second day. She commanded the stealth carrier Remembrance, the fastest ship in the human fleet. Her mission was different from the others. "You will not engage the enemy," Admiral Park T told her. "Your ship carries no weapons. It carries medical supplies, food, and evacuation transports. Your mission is to reach Veloci Prime before the battle begins. Save as many civilians as you can. Women, children, the elderly, anyone who cannot fight." Beak Jin studied the mission parameters. Admiral, the Krath will already be in orbit when I arrive. I will have to fly through their fleet to reach the surface. Yes. The chances of survival are very low. Yes. Beak Jin looked at the Admiral. He was old. His hair was gray. His eyes were tired. But his voice was steady and his back was straight. I understand, she said. I will save as many as I can, even if the war is lost, even if the fleet is destroyed. I will get the Veloci off that planet. Admiral Park T placed his hand on her shoulder. Your grandmother survived the plague. Yes, sir. She was 6 years old when the Veloci doctors cured her. Then you know why this matters. Beak Jin nodded. I know, sir. I have known my entire life. The Remembrance launched that evening. It was the first human ship to leave for Veloci space. It carried no soldiers. It carried no weapons. It carried only hope. Far away in the darkness between stars, the Krath overlord Dren received intelligence reports about the human mobilization. He read them carefully. Then he laughed. They are sending their entire fleet, his advisor said nervously. Every ship they have. Good, Dren replied. We will destroy them all in one battle. It will save us the trouble of hunting them down later. But Overlord, why are they doing this? The Veloci are worthless. The humans gain nothing from this war. Dren shrugged. Humans are emotional creatures. They make decisions based on feelings rather than logic. This is why they will never be a great power. This is why they will die. He ordered his fleet to continue the siege of Veloci Prime. He did not bother to request reinforcements. 300 human ships against 2,000 Krath vessels. The math was simple. The outcome was certain. Overlord Dren went asleep that night with a smile on his face. He dreamed of victory and conquest and glory. He did not understand humans at all. The human fleet arrived at the edge of Veloci space on the 7th day. 340 ships hung in the darkness, their engines cooling after the long journey. Many had traveled without stopping. Some crews had not slept in days. A few ships had lost crew members during the journey, humans who pushed themselves too hard and died at their posts. No one complained. No one turned back. Admiral Park T stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Debt and studied the tactical display. The Krath fleet was visible in the distance, a cloud of red dots surrounding the blue marker of Veloci Prime. 2,000 warships, carriers, destroyers, battle cruisers. The largest invasion force the Krath had ever assembled. Open a channel, Park T ordered. Broadcast on all frequencies. His communications officer nodded. Channel open, Admiral. Park T straightened his uniform and looked directly at the camera. His message would be heard by the Krath, the Veloci, and anyone else who was listening. He chose his words carefully. This is Admiral Park T of the United Earth Coalition. The Veloci are under our protection. We advise you to withdraw immediately. He paused. This is not a request. The message ended. The bridge crew waited in silence. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the response came. The face of Krath Overlord Dren appeared on the screen. He was large and heavily armored, with deep red skin and eyes like black stones. He looked at Admiral Park T and smiled. Human, Dren said slowly, you have made a very long journey to die. I respect that, but I will not withdraw. Your 300 ships cannot stop my 2,000. The math is simple. The Veloci did not check the math when they came to save us 300 years ago, Park T replied. We learned from their example. Dren's smile faded slightly. I do not know what you are talking about, and I do not care. You have 1 hour to turn around. After that, I will destroy your fleet and continue my conquest. We will not turn around. Then you will die. Perhaps, Park T agreed. But we will not leave. Not while a single Veloci remains alive. Not while a single human ship can still fly. The transmission ended. Dren's face disappeared from the screen. Commander No Sung approached the admiral. He was the tactical officer responsible for planning the battle. His face was pale, but his voice was steady. Admiral, I have completed the tactical analysis. If we attack directly, we will lose approximately 70% of our fleet in the first hour. We cannot win a straight battle. I know, Park T said quietly. However, No Sung continued, I have developed an alternative strategy. It is unconventional. It relies on human psychology rather than military strength. Explain. No Sung activated a new display. The Krath fight for conquest. They calculate cost and benefit. They retreat when the price becomes too high. They expect us to do the same. But we will not. Exactly. Our strategy is simple. We do not try to win. We try to make them bleed. Every ship we lose takes 3 of theirs with it. Every human that dies makes the Krath pay a price. We fight until they realize that destroying us will cost them more than they can afford. Admiral Park T studied the display. The numbers were brutal. Even in the best case, human losses would be catastrophic, but the strategy was sound. The Krath do not believe in sacrifice, No Sung continued. They do not understand why anyone would fight a battle they cannot win. This confusion is our weapon. When they see us charging into death without hesitation, it will break something inside them. They will not know how to respond. Park T nodded slowly. Begin the attack. The human fleet moved forward. Across the galaxy, other species watched the battle unfold on their screens. The news networks carried live footage from long-range sensors. Billions of beings on thousands of worlds saw the tiny human fleet advance toward the massive Krath armada. In the chambers of the Galactic Council, Counselor Veth watched in horrified silence. She was old, nearly 300 years by human counting. She had seen many wars. She had never seen anything like this. They are committing suicide, another counselor said. Why? The Veloci are not worth this sacrifice. Counselor Veth did not respond. She was thinking about history, about the plague that had nearly destroyed humanity 3 centuries ago, about the small silver ships that had arrived without warning, carrying medicine and hope. She had voted against helping humanity back then. She had called it a waste of resources. She had said humans were too young and too unimportant to matter. Now she watched those same humans fly towards certain death to save a species that the galaxy had forgotten, and she felt something she had not felt in centuries. Shame. The battle began at noon by human time. Admiral Park T gave a final order before the fighting started. All ships, he broadcast, remember why we are here. Remember who we are fighting for. Remember what the Veloci did for us. Today we pay our debt. Today we show the galaxy what humanity means. The human fleet crashed into the Krath formation like a wave hitting a rock. The Krath expected the humans to fight carefully. They expected defensive formations and strategic retreats. They expected humans to run when the casualties became too high. Instead, human ships charged directly at Krath vessels. They did not slow down. They did not hesitate. When their weapons ran dry, they rammed. When their engines failed, they kept firing until their reactors exploded. When one ship was destroyed, the others did not scatter. They closed ranks and kept attacking. The Krath killed 50 human ships in the first 20 minutes. They lost 150 of their own. First Son Torin commanded the Krath left wing. He was young for a commander, but skilled. He had studied human military tactics before the battle. Nothing he had learned prepared him for this. They are not retreating, his second-in-command said, voice shaking. We have killed dozens of their ships. They should be running. They are not running, Torin agreed quietly. He watched a crippled human destroyer accelerate directly at a Krath battlecruiser. The destroyer was dying. Its weapons were gone. Its engines were failing. But the human crew aimed their broken ship at the enemy and pushed the engines to maximum. The collision destroyed both vessels. Why? His second-in-command whispered. Why would they do this? Torin did not answer. He was thinking about the human admiral's words. The Veloci did not check the math when they came to save us. What did that mean? What had the Veloci done 300 years ago? He ordered his tactical staff to search the historical records. What they found made his blood run cold. The Veloci had saved humanity from extinction. They had sacrificed everything, and now humanity was returning the favor. Torin understood then what his father did not. The Krath were not fighting an enemy. They were fighting a species that believed it owed a debt, a species that would rather die than break a promise. This was not a battle the Krath could win. Not really. Even if they destroyed every human ship, the cost would be too high. The story would spread across the galaxy. Other species would learn that attacking human friends meant war without end, war without mercy, war without calculation. First Son Torin watched another human ship explode, taking 2 Krath destroyers with it. The human crews were singing as they died. He could hear them on the open channels, singing songs about hope and honor and remembrance. He opened a private channel to his father. "We need to talk," he said, "now." While the battle raged in space, Captain Beek Jin brought the remembrance through the gaps in the Krath fleet. Her ship was fast and quiet, designed for stealth rather than combat. The Krath were too busy fighting the human fleet to notice one small vessel slipping past their lines. She landed on Veloci Prime as the sky burned with distant explosions. The city around the landing zone was chaos. Buildings were on fire. Veloci families ran through the streets carrying whatever they could hold. Children were crying. The elderly were being carried by younger ones. Everyone was moving toward the evacuation points, but there was nowhere to go. The Krath controlled the sky. No ship had been able to leave the planet in days. Until now. Beek Jin opened the cargo bay of the Remembrance. Inside were medical supplies, food, water, and space for 500 passengers. She knew 500 was not enough. There were millions of Veloci on this planet, but 500 was better than none. "Everyone who can fit, get inside," she shouted in universal standard. "We are taking you to safety." The Veloci stared at her. They had never seen a human before except in history books. They knew the story, of course. Every Veloci child learned about the plague and the mission that had saved humanity. But that was ancient history. That was something their great-grandparents had done. An elderly Veloci approached Beek Jin. Her silver skin was wrinkled with age, and her large, dark eyes were wet with tears. "You are human," the old one said. "Yes." "You came for us." "Yes." The old one looked at the burning sky, then back at Beek Jin. "Why? We did not ask for help. We only sent a message to say goodbye." Beek Jin felt her throat tighten. "My grandmother survived the plague because of your people. Every human alive today exists because of what you did 300 years ago. Did you think we would forget? Did you think we would let you die alone?" The old one began to weep. Around her, other Veloci were weeping too, not from sadness this time, from something else. "Get on the ship," Beek Jin said gently. "We will take as many as we can. More ships are coming. We will not leave anyone behind." On the other side of the city, Sergeant Moon Kai led his squad through the burning streets. They were ground forces, dropped from orbit before the Krath could close the sky completely. Their mission was to secure the evacuation routes and protect the Veloci civilians. The squad moved carefully through the destruction. Every few minutes, they found another group of Veloci hiding in the ruins. Each time, they stopped to help. "Come with us," Moon Kai told a Veloci mother clutching 2 small children. "We will take you to the evacuation point." "I cannot walk fast," the mother said. "My leg is injured. Please take my children and leave me." Moon Kai shook his head. "We do not leave anyone." He turned to one of his soldiers. "Private O, carry her. I will take the children." The soldier lifted the Veloci mother without hesitation. Moon Kai picked up the two children, one in each arm. They were light, almost weightless. Their large dark eyes stared at him with a mixture of fear and wonder. "Are you a human?" one of them asked. "Yes." "The humans from the stories, the ones our ancestors saved." "The same ones." The child was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I thought you would be bigger." Moon Kai laughed despite everything. "We are exactly the right size." The squad continued through the city, gathering more Veloci as they went. They gave away their food. They gave away their water. When they ran out of supplies, they gave away their own rations. By the time they reached the evacuation point, every human soldier was starving, but every Veloci they found was fed. In orbit, the battle continued to rage. Admiral Park T stood on his bridge and watched the tactical display. The numbers were brutal. The human fleet had lost over 100 ships, but the Krath had lost 300. Human crews were dying, but they were taking the enemy with them. More human ships arrived every hour. Reinforcement fleets from distant colonies, crews who had flown without sleep, pushing their engines beyond safe limits. Some ships arrived with dead crew members still at their posts, humans who had worked themselves to death to arrive in time. No one complained. No one asked why. They simply joined the battle and started fighting. Elder Luma, the last surviving leader of the Veloci, contacted Admiral Park T from the surface. Her image appeared on his screen, silver skin and dark eyes filled with pain. "Admiral," she said, "please stop this. You are dying for us. Your people are dying for us. We are not worth this sacrifice. Please withdraw while you still can." Park T looked at her for a long moment. Outside his window, another human ship exploded. Another crew died. Another debt was paid in blood. "Elder Luma," he said slowly, 300 years ago, your people decided that humanity was worth saving. You gave everything to help us. You accepted punishment without complaint. Your ambassador said you would do it again." "We would," Luma whispered. "We would do it again." "Then understand this. You do not get to decide you are worth less than we are. You do not get to tell us that your lives do not matter. You saved us when no one else would. Now we save you. This is not negotiable." Luma's eyes overflowed with tears. "Admiral, the Veloci taught humanity something important 300 years ago," Park T continued. "You taught us that kindness matters, that sacrifice means something, that debt must be honored. We learned well, Elder Luma. We learned very well." He ended the transmission. Far across the battlefield, First Son Torin finally reached his father on the command channel. Overlord Dren was furious. The battle was not going as planned. Human losses were heavy, but Krath losses were worse. "Father," Torin said, "we need to withdraw." "Withdraw," Dren's voice was filled with rage. "We are winning. We have killed hundreds of their ships. And they have killed hundreds more of ours. They are not retreating, Father. They are not calculating costs. They are not fighting like normal enemies. Every ship we destroy makes them fight harder. They are fools." "No," Torin said quietly. "They are paying a debt. I searched the historical records. 300 years ago, the Veloci saved the humans from a plague. The Veloci sacrificed everything. Now the humans are returning the favor. They will not stop. They will fight until every last one of them is dead." Dren was silent for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was uncertain. "No species does that. No species throws away their entire military for a debt. Humans do. And Father, if we destroy them, the story will spread. Every species in the galaxy will know that attacking human allies means fighting an enemy who cannot be broken, an enemy who will die rather than retreat. Other species will seek human protection. We will have more enemies than we can count." Dren did not respond. "We cannot defeat a species that does not calculate cost," Torin continued. "We can kill them, but we cannot defeat them. The difference matters." Outside, another wave of human ships arrived. Fresh reinforcements, more humans willing to die for a promise made 3 centuries ago. Overlord Dren watched them come, and for the first time in his long military career, he felt something he had never felt before. Fear. The Krath Dominion retreated on the 9th day. Overlord Dren gave the order himself, his voice hollow and tired. He had lost 1,100 ships. His invasion force was broken. His reputation was ruined. But he was alive and his remaining fleet was intact. That was something. First son Torin stood beside his father as the Krath ships turned away from Veloci Prime. Neither of them spoke for a long time. What was there to say? They had come to crush a weak species for amusement. They had found something else entirely. The humans, Dren finally said. They lost more than half their fleet. Yes. They should have retreated long before now. They should have cut their losses. They do not think that way, father. Dren turned to look at his son. I do not understand them. I will never understand them. No, Torin agreed. I do not think you will. The last Krath ship disappeared into the darkness between stars. Behind them, the human fleet hung in orbit around Veloci Prime, battered and broken but still there, still protecting. Admiral Park T stood on his damaged bridge and watched the Krath go. His uniform was torn. His face was bruised. He had not slept in 3 days. Around him, his crew was in similar condition. Every one of them was exhausted beyond words. But they had won. Commander No Sung approached with a damage report. Admiral, we have lost 204 ships, 63% of the engaged fleet, approximately 40,000 human personnel killed in action. Park T closed his eyes. 40,000. 40,000 humans who would never go home. 40,000 families that would receive terrible news in the coming days. And the Veloci, he asked. The evacuation operations saved approximately 2 million civilians. Captain Beek Jin made 17 trips through the Krath lines. Sergeant Moon, Kai's ground teams rescued over 300,000 from the capital city alone. 2 million, Park T repeated. 2 million Veloci saved. Yes, Admiral. He opened his eyes and looked at the planet below. It was scarred by the invasion. Cities burned. Fields were destroyed, but people were still alive. The Veloci still existed. Their kindness from 300 years ago had been repaid. It was worth it, he said quietly. Every ship, every life, it was worth it. On the surface of Veloci Prime, Elder Luma stood before the human soldiers who had come to save her people. They were tired and wounded, their uniforms dirty, their faces marked by exhaustion. But they stood straight, and their eyes were clear. Luma walked slowly down the line, looking at each human face. These were the descendants of the people her ancestors had saved. These were the children and grandchildren of plague survivors. They had crossed thousands of light years to repay a debt that most species would have forgotten. She stopped before Captain Beek Jin. You made 17 trips through enemy fire. You could have been killed at any moment. Beek Jin nodded. Yes. Why did you risk so much for us? Beek Jin reached into her pocket and pulled out an old photograph. It showed a young Veloci doctor holding a tiny human child. The doctor was smiling. The child was wrapped in silver cloth. This is my grandmother, Beek Jin said. She was 6 years old when your people saved her. She kept this picture her entire life. She showed it to me every day when I was growing up. She made me promise that if the Veloci ever needed help, I would come. Luma stared at the photograph. The Veloci doctor in the image looked familiar, very familiar. That is my great-grandmother, she whispered. She was one of the doctors who treated the human plague victims. Both women stood in silence, looking at the image of their ancestors together. 300 years ago, a Veloci had saved a human child. Now that child's granddaughter had saved the Veloci. The debt is paid, Luma said finally. No, Beekjin replied. The debt is never paid. We will always remember. We will always come. That is what the Veloci taught us. That is what it means to be human. Across the galaxy, the news of the battle spread. Every species heard the story. Every world watched the footage. They saw 300 human ships charge into 2,000 enemy vessels. They saw humans die singing songs about honor. They saw a species sacrifice everything to save forgotten friends. In the chambers of the Galactic Council, Counselor Veth stood before the assembled representatives and spoke words she had never expected to say. We were wrong about humanity, she said. We thought they were young and emotional and unimportant. We were wrong. They remember kindness. They honor debts. They fight for their friends even when the math says they cannot win. They are more dangerous than any species we have ever encountered. Dangerous? Another counselor asked. They nearly destroyed themselves saving the Veloci. That is not dangerous. That is foolish. Veth shook her head. You do not understand. The Krath attacked the Veloci because they were weak, because no one would protect them. Now every species in the galaxy knows that humans protect their allies. Every species knows that attacking a friend of humanity means war without end. She looked around the chamber. How many of you have been kind to humans? How many of you have helped them in the past? Think carefully before you answer, because the humans remember. They remember everything. President Yoon Hana addressed the galaxy 3 days after the battle. She stood in the great chamber on Earth, surrounded by empty seats that would have held representatives who died in the fighting. We did not fight this war for power, she said. We did not fight for territory or resources or glory. We fought because 300 years ago, a small species crossed the galaxy to save strangers. They gave us everything they had. They asked for nothing in return. The Galactic Council punished them for this kindness, and they accepted the punishment without complaint. She paused. Humanity does not forget those who help us. We will never forget, and we will never stand by while our friends suffer. Her voice grew harder. We also remember those who watched us burn and did nothing. We remember those who stood by while the Veloci faced destruction. We do not make threats. We simply remember. The message was clear. Help humanity and humanity would help you. Hurt humanity's friends and there would be consequences. Not threats, not warnings, just the certainty that humans remembered everything. In the months that followed, the galaxy changed. Small species that had been ignored began reaching out to humanity. They offered trade. They offered friendship. They offered small kindnesses. They had seen what happened to those who helped humans. They had also seen what happened to those who threatened human allies. The Krath Dominion issued a standing order to all their fleets: never engage human vessels, never threaten human allies. The cost was not calculable. A debt that humans owed could not be measured in ships or soldiers. It was measured in memory. On Veloci Prime, the rebuilding began. Human engineers helped repair the damage. Human doctors treated the wounded. Human ships carried supplies from across the galaxy. The Veloci were no longer alone. A young Veloci girl named Lyra stood at the entrance to the Human Academy on her first day as a student. She was nervous. She was far from home. She did not know anyone. An older human student noticed her standing alone and walked over. "Hey, are you new?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, I am from Veloci Prime." The human student smiled. "Really? That is amazing. My grandmother talks about the Veloci all the time. She says your people saved humanity." "Your people saved us too," Lyra replied. "I know, that is what we do, we remember." The human offered her hand. "My name is Park Somi. Want me to show you around?" Lyra took her hand. "Yes, I would like that." They walked together into the academy. A human and a Veloci, descendants of those who had saved each other across 3 centuries. Years later, when Lyra became a teacher herself, students would ask her why she had devoted her life to human-Veloci relations. She always gave the same answer. The humans taught us what debt means. They showed us that kindness echoes across generations. Now I teach my children the same lesson, and someday they will teach their children. This is how the galaxy changes, one kindness at a time. The story of the Battle of Veloci Prime became legend. Every human child learned it. Every Veloci child learned it. And slowly, other species began to learn it too. The galaxy had many dangerous species, but none were as dangerous as the ones who remembered. None were as dangerous as those who repaid their debts. And when humans repaid their obligation, the galaxy trembled in fear, not because humans were violent, not because they were powerful, because they never, ever forgot.